Caesar quod memoria tenebat, Lucium Cassium consulum occisum exercitumque eius ab Helvetiis pulsum et sub jugum missum, concedendum non putabat. Caesar, because, okay, here's a phrase you need to remember. They do it all the time. Memoria tenebat means to hold in his memory. That's the nice way of saying because he remembered. And I bet you that's going to introduce another indirect statement. Because he remembered that, here's the start of it, Lucius Cassius, let's keep going, consulum occisum, oh, Caesar, Caesar, Caesar. Why don't you make your passive infinitives easier for students to recognize? It's really occisum esse and missum esse. Those are your infinitives, they just don't look like infinitives. So this is your indirect statement. Here's your subject. Because he remembered that Lucius Cassius, who was a consul, occisum esse, that is a synonym for necatum esse or interfectum esse. So that's one thing he remembers. And notice we've got a que here. What else does he remember? He remembers that the exercitum eius, the army of Cassius, ab Helvetiis, look, it's an ablative of agent, and we're expecting a passive verb. Oh, look, here's another one. Pulsum esse et sub jugum missum esse. So he remembered that Cassius the consul was killed, and the army of Cassius, his army, was pushed, repulsed by the Helvetians and sent missum esse, sent beneath the yoke. So that was a particularly humiliating thing because not only did they defeat the Romans, but they also humiliated them by going under the yoke. You can Google that, look it up on Wikipedia, but you never want your army to have to do that. A couple things to remember. Cassius was defeated about 49 years before the Helvetians made their mass migration. Caesar is remembering this event from 49 years ago, and Cassius and his army were defeated back around the time of the Cimbri and all that fun stuff, just for some perspective. So again, Caesar, because he was holding in his memory that Cassius, the consul, was killed and his army was pushed by the Helvetians and sent beneath the yoke because of this stuff. Before we even get to the rest, you're probably guessing if Caesar's going to say, sure, let's go through our territory or not. Oh, concedendum non putabat. Again, we've got, this is really concedendum esse. Another indirect statement. He was not thinking that it should be conceded. Notice the ND there. He wasn't thinking this was a good idea. Neque homines in imico animo, data facultate per provinciam itineris faciundi, tempturaturos ab injuria et maleficio existimabat. Hopefully by now you notice that Caesar likes to put the main verb at the end, and existimabat is a verb that means to think, consider, and it usually introduces probably an indirect statement. So we'll go back now. Nope, let's see. And neither was he thinking that, oh, here's our accusative, guys, people. Here's a noun adjective here, with an unfriendly mind. Ablative absolute here, with the ease, facultate, with ability, ease, permission, having been given. Permission for what? Of making a trip through the province. So nor was he thinking that these people were still waiting for the infinitive. Here it is, tempturaturos. Notice, Caesar never puts a esse on because he just expects you to know it. Tempturaturos esse. Nor was he thinking that those guys would try, or I guess behave, from injury and misdeed. He wasn't thinking that those guys would try to make a trip through the province without any trouble. One more time. And nor was Caesar thinking that people with unfriendly character would refrain from injury and bad deed with permission of making a journey through the province having been granted. So I don't think he trusts those Helvetians. Tamen ut spatium intercedere posset, dum militos quos imperaverat convenirent, legatis responded, diem se ad deliberandum sumpturum, si quid velent ad ids april reverterentur. Okay, however, and then we have this nifty ut clause. This is a purpose clause. And let's see, it starts there and it ends there. In order that spatium, that's your subject, a space be able to intercede, i.e. a space of time. Caesar's buying time for himself. However, in order that a space be able to intercede, a space in what? This is another clause marker. Until, until the soldiers, quos imperaverat, until the soldiers, and then we have this nifty relative clause, whom he had called, could gather. So he's stalling them. However, so that a space could intercede while or until the soldiers whom he had called could gather, what did Caesar do? Respondet legatis. He responded to the legates. And if you're going to respond to somebody, that's a verb of saying, uh-oh, another indirect statement. There it is. He responded to the legates that he, where's your infinitive? Can you find it? Before we get there, they give us this nifty ad plus an nd word, which you should know by now means for the purpose of thinking, deliberandum, for the purpose of deliberating. He, there it is, your infinitive, sumpturum, and it's an understood essay. He would take up a day, he would take some time, not necessarily one day, but some days, he would take a day for the purpose of deliberating. So he's like, guys, I need to think about it. Si quid velent, if they wanted, and this is not really quid, it's actually aliquid, because there's that nifty little poem after si, nisi, num, and ne, all the alis go away. If they should want anything, they should come back on the Ides of April, which, by the way, is actually April 13th, not the 15th. So he's telling them, guys, I need a couple weeks to think about it. Come back on April 13th.